Hello and welcome to A Tribe Called Health, podcast number 3, Real Food Weight Loss with Jen Eidahl. A Tribe Called Health is made up of predominantly health and fitness professionals and convenes for roundtable discussions relevant to sustainable, health-promoting lifestyles. We're about to get started, but first a disclaimer. This broadcast does not constitute medical or legal advice. If you need medical or legal advice, seek a doctor or a lawyer. If you are a doctor or a lawyer and need health or fitness advice, get in the tribe. Today, we proudly welcome our featured guest, Jennifer Eidahl. Jen has lost 100 pounds by eating paleo, and get this, living a healthy lifestyle. You can always find her at facebook.com/Paleo Dieting. We're going to see what her secrets are. Let's see who we have in the tribe for this episode.
Hey, Joe Rignoli here, and I'm really excited about having our first guest on today. You can find me at wellnesspunks.com, and as Todd said, our topic today is weight loss and real food. We are very excited to be joined by Jennifer Eidahl of PaleoDieting.com. So we'll go around really quick, and everyone can sort of introduce themselves, and we'll get this party started. John?
So John here again.
Barbara.
Yeah, John here again from sexfoodandkettlebells.com, and today my better half and partner Barbara is here also. So, want to introduce yourself?
Definitely. I'm Barbara, and I am co-author of Sex Food and Kettlebells with John. I'm also a movement coach and kettlebell instructor and holistic nutritionist, and my focus is on functional neurology. So what that means in practical terms is that I use my nerd powers to use current research to hack the nervous system to help people achieve their goals. So whether that's athletic performance, rehabilitation of chronic pain, habit change, nutritional goals, whatever it is, I'm there to support them. So that's me.
Awesome.
And I'm Eric Hulse, erichulse.com, holistic health coach, and I'm ready to introduce Jen. So Jen, what's going on, girl?
Not much, thanks.
Excellent, excellent. So we've got a number of questions, and I'm sure we're going to try and hit on most of them. But one of the interesting questions that we got is, what do you eat? And I think maybe we could all tackle this because we've gotten that question a number of times. What did everyone eat today?
Today?
Yeah.
My diet's recently changed because I struggled for the past few months with food allergies, really bad. So for breakfast, it was leftover dinner because I'm struggling with what to eat in the morning without eggs.
Okay.
So that was basically like a grass-fed seasoned hamburger with some sautéed green peppers and onions, and I put it over a little bit of lettuce. And then for lunch, I had a huge chicken salad, and I haven't eaten dinner yet, but dinner will be grass-fed steak with some sweet potatoes and green beans.
Outstanding. Anybody else want to jump in on that?
Well, I'm in Florida right now. I'm at my parents' house, and my mother is a phenomenal cook. She doesn't joke around in the kitchen. She's no joke. So she hooked up this quiche today. It was the bomb. It had, I don't know what it had in it. I think it had spinach with chicken and then green beans on the side. That was for lunch, and I had the same thing for breakfast. And then for my dinner today was close to you, Jen. I had steak and sweet potatoes and some coleslaw that she whipped up. So I'm in heaven right now.
Nice.
Well, first off, I want to say just with what Jen had for breakfast, I think that's something that people should also just get more into the groove of, is not always having breakfast foods for breakfast. A lot of time it's very practical to make enough food that you have multiple meals after it. And in many cultures, in many countries, their breakfast food is much different from ours. It's more like lunch food or dinner food, so nothing wrong with that. Me personally, I had an omelet I made with some free-range eggs and some goat cheese. and I had some coffee, which was mostly steamed whipping cream with espresso.
Yeah.
That was my breakfast. Yeah, what'd you have?
Well, I usually start my day with a nice tea with some butter and coconut oil, and I find that's amazing. And recently, I've been really enjoying some goat yogurt mixed with traditionally fermented kefir and raw honey with some gelatin as well, and mixed together is like a nice moussey kind of taste.
Wow.
And, I find that's a really nice way to get the gelatin in, which is very healing for me. So yeah, that's kind of been a fun thing.
What kind of tea do you have, Barbara?
I have different kinds, just depending on like my mood. So different herbs. Today I had a nice black tea from India, and I think it was definitely organic. And then sometimes I'll have like some Ayurvedic teas, just depending on what I feel that my body needs. When John is in the States, he's going to actually pick us up some bulletproof coffee. So really excited about that, so that I can start having that coffee, because I definitely react negatively to the like mycotoxins in regular coffee. So I'm excited to be able to have a coffee that I can actually drink. So
Wow.
So that, mixing that with butter and coconut oil, be good.
Nice. Very cool. Todd?
Well, like every day, there were voluminous amounts of grass-fed red meat for dinner. It was ribs, so a giant crock pot full of ribs, barbecue sauce, and this week is also big. We're big into fermented food, so we had some fermented coleslaw going on, some fermented ketchup, and you guys have heard me bragging about all week.
You're proud of your ketchup.
I'm so happy about this ketchup thing.
That's a pretty big accomplishment. I brag about it too.
Oh, I love it.
Who whipped that up, Todd? Did you do that? Is that your doing?
It's often a group effort here. Sometimes I'm the sous chef. Sometimes my girlfriend is. But we have fairly on par kitchen skills, so it really makes for some interesting meals.
Can we start pumping questions at Jen or what?
Yeah, let's do that. All
right. So I want to start.
Go.
I think it would be just great to know, and this probably is different from person to person. But actually, I got a lot of questions for you if we got time. But
yeah. Should we start with maybe a background, like a history with her?
Yeah, you know what? Let's get that first.
Cool,
Give us a little speech, Jen. Your story. Tell us your story.
Well, I kind of struggled with weight my entire life. So I went from, kind of being an anorexic teenager to being an overweight adult. I have 3 sons, and so 3 pregnancies and a C-section didn't help with my weight problems. And I kind of just gave up, and I figured, well, I'll just be this mom who takes care of my kids and, a wife, and I won't try anymore. And then I got to the point where that just, it wasn't working, and it was not only impeding my health, but my social development and my growth as a person. And so I decided I needed to do something about it. And so I really didn't get where I am the smart way. I kind of just lucked out. I just kind of went into the local 24-hour fitness and hired a personal trainer. And I didn't interview, I didn't do research, I just hired a trainer. And I lucked out, and he was wonderful. And he's the one who introduced me to the paleo diet, and he's still my trainer today. So, I got here kind of by accident, maybe a little bit by fate, because I kind of feel like, this is where I belong.
How long ago was that?
That I went to 24-hour fitness?
Yeah. You started.
It'll be 2 years in April.
Cool.
Yeah.
So let me ask a quick question. What do you think? Like maybe one of the pivotal moments was in in that time between your first walking into the 24-hour fitness and now. What were maybe the most difficult things for you to overcome?
I think that in the beginning, I would try to diet and fail. Prior to joining 24-hour fitness, but I think that I was missing a big part of what I needed, and that was accountability and guidance. And like I said, I lucked out, and I ended up finding someone who could offer that to me. But I really had to keep finding what I needed. And when something made me scared or worried, I thought about it, and I said, I thought, well, why? Why is this bothering me, and what do I need to do to get beyond this and work past it?
What would be something that scared you?
Well, I was almost 300 pounds I'm 5'2.5", so I'm a short girl, and I was almost 300 pounds, and so when I first actually went to 24-hour, I was just walking on the treadmill watching The Biggest Loser for about 2 hours every day of the week, and I was afraid to go upstairs. I belonged to the gym for a couple of months before I actually went upstairs to where the weights were, because I was scared. I was scared to go up there, and what was I going to do, and how was I going to feel, because I wasn't this slim trim girl in a sports bra. And and that's why I hired the trainer, because they were upstairs and I knew I was going to have to go up there. And so if something kind of scared me, then I figured I needed to do it. I needed to
So
figure.
was that the moment that you went upstairs is when you hired your trainer? And
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And the funny story is I'm great at lifting weights. It's my favorite.
Nice. Very cool.
How important would you personally feel the whole fitness side of things has been in your weight loss journey? Like, obviously food is huge, and even as trainers, because we're trainers, especially when people have a weight loss goal, we're usually telling them it's like 80% nutrition when they're trying to hit a huge target. So just from your personal, great success story, how relevant, how important was the fitness side of things for you? What do you think that really did for you in the grand scheme?
Well, I agree. Food is huge, but I hear that 80% diet, and then I think for weight loss, it's really 90% mental and emotional, and working out is a huge importance to that mental state, because you kind of have to start thinking of yourself as a healthy person. You have to think of yourself as an athlete, because most overweight people, they do a fair job at mentally abusing themselves. And that's part of what that chokes me up, sorry. That's part of what I did to myself for years, and that's part of what I talk about on the Facebook page, because I've been there. I've told myself terrible things that I would never say to my worst enemy. And so when you're starting out and you are where I was or in a similar place, it's 90% mental, and the food's not going to fall into place, and the exercise isn't going to fall into place if you don't start acting like a new person. If you don't start taking care of yourself and getting to the gym and making yourself do it, because it's about you and finally, addressing your needs.
So where did that motivation come from? Because a lot of people are, like, I have a question here that wants, from my Facebook page, Vivian Morel Lang. She wants to know, how did you stick with it? Because she said she has a very hard time doing that. So how did you keep that motivation up, and how did you stick with it to become so successful?
I did have a hard time sticking with it. And, starting a Facebook page and having 6,000 people doesn't hurt. But also, I have a trainer. I text my trainer when I need him. And I made myself accountable. I created accountability. And if I wasn't doing what I was supposed to, people were going to know, and they were going to put me in check. I was spending a lot of money, supplements, training, membership, gym memberships, and I was responsible for that money and to use it wisely and to make sure that I was doing what I needed to do.
So, are there still moments when there are days where you just still struggle and you have to, sort of remind yourself of this journey that you're on, or
Yeah, I mean, I'm a food addict for life. Food addiction isn't any different, I don't think. I mean, I haven't been an alcoholic or a drug addict than other addictions, and I'll always be that person. And I I have to have support system to fall back on those days when it's just too much.
Now, do you with? I know a lot of people say if it's not in the house, you're not going to eat it. You know, that's a big thing. You know, so is that something that you practice? You know, you stock up with healthy foods. You make sure that that all that food is out of your house. Is that something that you practice?
Yeah, absolutely. Not having it in the house, and then also planning, like you said, having the right foods in the house. You know, a lot of us wait till we're way too hungry to eat, and then we just eat whatever's quick, whatever's easily accessible, or, you know, we kind of convince ourselves that we don't have enough time. And, you know, if you don't plan, not planning at all is planning to fail. And so you have to have a plan. I mean, probably if we went around and talked and each said how much time we spend thinking about food, grocery shop.
It would be hours.
I told you, I'm at my mom's house right now. That's all that's on my brain. Like, I'm thinking about food right now. Like, what am I going to do after the podcast is done? Because there's like some fried chicken ready for me to eat.
I think we would look like, you know, freaks if we were honest.
But you know what? I think if you go back to even like a hunter-gatherer time, I'm pretty sure you were always thinking about your next meal too.
Yeah, you pretty much had to be, right?
Probably deeply ingrained in us is we do need to know where our food is coming from, right?
Right.
I have a question oh, sorry, you can go on if you want, Eric.
No, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Okay, well, mine was just, and it might be for anyone here, I'm not sure. Just going back to talking about how you said, you know, you'll always be a food addict. Is there ever a point, do you guys, or do you think, when you're physically in the right spot, so when, you know, where you've gotten to where you want to be, you're in, you know, great shape, your diet's in check, your mindset's in check, can being a food addict just become like being a foodie? Like I would practically call myself a food addict in the sense that I love eating and I love creating food and I intend to eat lots of it throughout life. Is there ever like a time when like maybe being a food addict, the game changes there? I'm just wondering what your thoughts are.
Yeah, maybe flip that into something more positive. Like, yeah,
having a better relationship with food.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
I don't.
That's a good question.
I think the word addict, in an extent, is a very unhealthy. It's an unhealthy way to approach something, right? And if you're approaching it because you had a crappy day and you want to make yourself feel better, or if you use it as a reward for yourself or something like that, I think along those lines, then it may be a problem. But if you love talking about food, if you love the textures, if you love the taste, if you love like being a scientist in the kitchen and then like blogging about it and then eating your recipes, I think that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And I probably wouldn't call it an addiction at that point, I think.
Yeah, and it's more of a self-expression and it's more of a creative aspect than an addiction, you know, because we're like painters and like composers in the kitchen. You know, we put these things together and we create something, and it's an art form instead of being like, this is something that's hurting me, and if I eat this, I'm going to feel better, but then an hour later, I know I'm going to feel like crap. You know, it's more of something that's bringing us up than putting us down.
Yeah, exactly. And health, I mean, and food was impacting my health and my life in a very, I was allowing it to impact my health and my life in a very negative way. And the hard part is that when you're trying to recover from food addiction, you still have to eat. Yeah. And so you do have to, like John said, you do have to change that. And actually, you know, when I was younger, I went to culinary school. And so I've always kind of been a foodie, and I can cook. And so it does have to change. It has to evolve. And, you know, it's not like if you're a heroin if you're a heroin addict, sorry, you don't, you know, change your relationship with heroin unless you're, you know, not taking it at all, and that's your relationship with it. But when you're, you know, what John said has some merit. When you have a problem with food, you have to keep eating, and so it does have to change, and it has to evolve, and you have to find a healthy, you know, way to express that.
So, Jen, have you gotten to the point, are you there now where you can look in the mirror and be like, I look like the shit?
No.
Like, are you there yet?
No, you know, I mentioned There, I've had some trouble the past few months with allergies, with food allergies, and so I have gained about 25 pounds back. So I went from being, like 24% body fat. I think now I'm 28, and so it's extremely depressing to me. I try not to focus on it because I try to focus on the fact that I learned a lot about my body in these past couple of months, and I've taken it off before, and I'll take it off again. But I don't know if I'll ever be there. I don't really fit as a girl, there's this ideal, I'm not going to be a size 3. I have 154 pounds of lean body mass. I have a lot of muscle, so I'm not going to be that, little girl. I'm always going to be bigger. And, that's fine. The trade-off for that is that I'm strong. But, I think I'll, because I think I'll always struggle a little bit with it, but I'm working on it.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to something you said earlier. You said, you have to start thinking like, a fit person or thinking like an athlete. Was there a moment, can you remember a specific moment when you made that transformation in your mind? Like, did you write down a goal, or did you specifically set a goal that you can remember that was like a turning point for you?
I think it was the working out and the realizing that I really was a good athlete. I might not be at my peak body fat percentage, but I'm a good athlete. I'm not coordinated. Like, I would never take a Zumba class because I would hurt someone or myself. But yeah. But I found something I'm good at and I enjoy it, and I think I really can be an athlete. And then it's actually my fitness coach who told me, you need to think of yourself as a fit person. And I thought, he is right. I do think of myself more like that now.
What's your favorite exercise to do?
So I like squats.
Nice.
I think it's because I can do 220. I can squat.
For you.
Yes.
Wow. Right on.
Yeah. So I compete with the big boys at the gym, and that's a nice feeling.
That's awesome.
So you're ruling the upstairs now, huh?
Yeah, I don't go there anymore. I have a trainer, but I only see him once a month. He moved to Seattle, Washington, so I didn't have anyone who could spot me, so I have to go to a bodybuilding gym now, so I can grab a guy to help me.
Oh, that's cool.
That must feel so cool.
That's awesome.
It's nice.
Mm-hmm.
So now
By the way, I think John does Zumba, right, John?
Not a chance.
No.
I actually told someone I would try it once, and I went in there for probably about 2 minutes or less, and I just left. I totally believe in it. I think some people, it really gets them going, and I think it's harmless, but I wasn't having it.
Did they make you leave your kettlebells at the door, or did you just go right ahead with the kettlebells in the Zumba?
Pretty much. No bells allowed. Jen, it sounds like you really enjoy fitness and working out now.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, when you first got started, what your relationship was with it. Before you even exercised, did you feel any inclination that you wanted to exercise? And when you got started, were you enjoying it and excited about going, or was it a task that you sort of had to really just knuckle down and do?
Well, when I was younger, I tried, quote unquote girly sports. I wanted to be the ballerina or the gymnast. And I took gymnastics for a while, but because I'm not coordinated, I wasn't good at it. And not to date myself, but I graduated in 1993, and girls didn't join the weightlifting team. We didn't take weight training, and so I never knew that I was actually good at something. I thought I was awkward, and I'm not good at sports. And so when I went, I thought, okay, well, I'm here to exercise. I'm not here to be an athlete. I'm not here to do a sport. I'm here to exercise to get to my goal. And when I was on the treadmill for hours watching The Biggest Loser, no, that wasn't fun. that was just droning on. I was trying to I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was just trying to, do as much cardio as I could.
If I can ask
So
a
anyway.
question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I wanted to. We talked about actually climbing the stairs, and overcoming that fear and actually getting to the weight room, and you found, you sort of found a second home there. But I'm kind of curious to know about what some of your biggest fears in the kitchen were. Like, what foods were you petrified to stop making the same way, or feeling like you had to get rid of, or that was going to never be a part of your life again? And how did you compensate for that? What did you change?
Well, bread is a religion in this country, right? When I tell people they shouldn't eat bread, they tend to get angry, and so I struggled. I struggled for a long time with, I don't eat any gluten or and very little grain, but I just eat a ton of vegetables now. I experiment with vegetables. I chop them and mash them and change them in all sorts of ways. But that's my bread now. Is just that's my carbs now are vegetables. But nothing really scared me, because maybe because I went to culinary school, I just felt like, well, I can do this. This isn't gonna be.
Do you have a favorite fruit meal to prepare now?
A favorite meal? I love my crock pot. I love it. And so I really like making hot sauce, and I like to find really cheap cuts of grass-fed beef because it's really expensive, and then cook it for a really long time in my homemade hot sauces and stuff like that.
Have you done a tongue yet? A cow tongue?
I haven't, but not because I wouldn't, just because my butcher never says, well, I have tongue. I've had cheese.
You can't hear that enough.
Yeah.
Especially from your butcher.
Yeah.
So what would you tell people who, going back to what you just said earlier, what would you tell people who are saying, this lifestyle is too expensive for me, I can't afford it? How would you instruct them?
It's an evolution. When I first started this, I read the Paleo Solution, and I was like, okay, that's the rules. And I was following the rules. And, I didn't eat grass-fed beef. I didn't know about pasture-raised eggs. And I learned, and I fit them in as I can afford them. I can't always. I have 3 kids. But I do my best. And, we don't have cable television. I have internet. But I don't have cable, and I don't have a car payment. I drive, my car's a 2003. And I do my best to keep the luxuries down, because food's not a luxury. I mean, I have to take care of myself, and I have to take care of my sons.
That's such a great point, and that's one thing that, as practitioners, I think we struggle with sometimes when we hear that. It sounds so expensive. It's like, well, what are your priorities? Do you need to, get new shoes every week, or whatever that may be?
That's been a little bit of a theme over the past couple of episodes too, and it's like, you're spending all this money on things that you're not putting actually inside your body, and you're happy enough to have them all around you and cluttering your house and your driveway and stuff. But what actually comes in the closest contact with you besides food? So spend the money on that. For sure.
Well, and if you are overweight and you have weight to lose, are you going to feel better that you have cable television at the end of the week, or are you going to feel better that 2 pounds of fat are gone? What's really going to make you feel better?
And Jen, do you notice, because even as you said, even when you first got started with this, you weren't eating grass-fed, maybe you weren't going, completely organic. Now that you sound like, food quality is very important to you, do you notice, can you tell people that you notice a difference with the higher quality of food? Do you see maybe better results, or do you feel better? Is it noticeably worth it for you, how important food quality is?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I first started the Facebook page, I did an experiment where I cooked a regular old egg, an organic egg, and I'm actually really lucky because really close we have a big farm that's based on Joel Salatin's model.
Cool.
I cooked one of their eggs, no milk or anything. I just scrambled them, and the color difference, it was.
Oh,
I mean, you would have thought I added a ton of non-fat milk to the regular egg and the organic egg. The organic egg's color wasn't any better, but the pasture raised chicken egg was, orange. It was, and my mom's like, "Oh, that's the color chicken eggs used to be."
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point too. We're generally not asking people to do anything so extreme. We're saying, can we just back up a couple of generations and eat that way? I don't think that's really it.
Exactly.
Hey, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit. The last episode we talked a lot about food and relationships. How has your healthier diet and your healthier life, how has that affected the other relationships in your life?
I'm not afraid of things hardly ever anymore. I remember 9 months ago getting an email asking for a testimonial for a website from Rob Wolf and thinking, holy what? Like, what? Like, you don't really say no to Rob Wolf. But
that's a rule.
I guess.
Depends on what the question is.
Yeah, in my mind it was a rule. And, I knew that, like, I had to do it because I was in a place where so many people were, and I found my way out. And so I really felt like I needed to pay that forward. And so I did it. I wrote the story, and then I saw the responses, and I was, floored and touched. And I still am, like, touched every day by the things people say. And so I started the page, and I thought, oh, this will just be a little place where people can come if they need support. And I remember begging my family and friends to like it so that I could get to 30 likes and so I could see my insights. And, 9 months later, it's a beast, and it's wonderful. But, I share everything. I share my before pictures that are embarrassing that I had to email my foreign exchange students in Japan to get because photos just of me don't exist. I don't mind sharing them, and I get criticized on the blog, and I just don't care anymore because I have a mission, and it means so much to me that nothing really scares me anymore. I know I'm going to get rewarded if my heart is in the right place, and it almost always is.
That's awesome, Jen. Yeah, that's really that's such a great philosophy to put yourself out there like that, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, good for you.
Jen.
Yeah.
I have an interesting question for you. Have you found, since you've made these changes, since you've made this success, are there maybe other people who you personally know in your life, whether they're family or friends or people who maybe you've met through this journey, that just along with you have also made success or have had good things happen? Like, apart from your personal success, as this chapter of your life has blossomed, are you finding in any way that maybe it's affecting the people around you beyond your page, which is a prime example, but just right where you are?
Well, I think that people see some of the things that are happening to me, people in my life, and they realize that putting yourself out there, it might be scary and it might be something you're not used to do, but it'll come back to you. So yeah, in the beginning, everyone thought I was crazy, like this paleo diet, you're gonna eat like a caveman. That's ridiculous. Cavemen only lived at 30. I got it. I got it all. And now they kind of think of me as like, oh, well, ask Jennifer if you have a question. Like, they think of me as this guru. So, I think, yeah, I earned my respect, and I'm still earning it because I did name the page dieting, and that's a word people don't love. And so I kind of have to, I think, get beyond that with people. And, I think once they really get to know me and, see the page, they know that I don't mean like this is some diet where you're going to eat okay for 6 weeks and lose a little bit of weight and, be skinnier than your friends. I mean, that's not what this is about. And, so I'm always working on, gaining people's respect. But yeah, I think in my personal life, yeah, I think I've earned it. And I've kind of found my way. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up for a really long time, and now I'm figuring it out.
So what is next? What are these things you're figuring out?
So I'm going to college, and I'm about halfway done.
Wow.
So I'm going to get my master's in therapy with an emphasis in addiction.
Great.
And I don't make any money right now. Everything I do is for free. So it's making myself marketable. It's teaching me things so that when I do get out there in this really competitive market, I'll be able to say, well, I'm not just a new college graduate. I have a lot of experience under my belt.
You're going to be really successful.
Yeah.
Jen, I totally feel like you're a superwoman.
Thank
That is
you.
so cool.
We talked in the last podcast also about maybe some relationships in our lives that, or maybe some resistance that we meet from some relationships in our lives when we switch to a healthier life. Did you experience any resistance from people close to you?
I think just worry that I was doing something that seemed extreme to them. There's still people who don't want to hear what I did to lose the weight. They work really hard to bring up subjects around me that have nothing to do with what I do online or for my eating. And that's okay. I mean, they're just, they're on their journey and they don't want to hear it. And, they're not being critical. They're just in a different place.
Jen, what would you tell, how would you instruct a beginner, somebody who is just starting off? Let's say you met somebody like at the grocery store and you told them their story and they're totally spot on. They really are into what you're saying and they're there. How would you instruct them to get started?
I tell them to get rid of the things that people are most allergic to on a reoccurring basis. Get rid of all of the top 6 or 7 foods that cause people the most problems, and then start reintroducing them. Wean yourself off of the processed packaged foods as much as possible until you're off of them for good. I think those are the 2 most important things are, just really getting rid of everything in your body that could be causing you problems,
right,
and then reintroducing to see, what you can handle. Some people can handle dairy, and even though, dairy's a paleo no-no in some places, in some schools, I don't think dairy's a no-no. Dairy's a no-no for me because I break out in hives if I have dairy. And obviously that's a reason not to have dairy. But for the average person who doesn't have a dairy intolerance, allergy, or sensitivity, grass-fed dairy's great. Kerrygold butter and all that stuff is I think good for you. If I'm not saying eat a tub of ice cream because it says
I've done that.
It's okay once in a while.
I don't think you have to tell us to do that. I think some of us do that here.
It's grass-fed though, so we're good.
Yeah, I know where Joe shops.
Exactly. So, hey, for Jennifer, for you, what was it sort of that gradual process, or did you just sort of rip the Band-Aid off and jump in with both feet?
So I followed the rules in the Paleo Solution, 100%. And then, I had a weekly cheat meal so that my thyroid wouldn't slow down. But what it really was a weekly opportunity to relive my eating disorder.
Is that what it turned into, or was there, you were just telling yourself that it was, a carb refeed?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I have carb refeeds now, but they're a lot different than they were, 6 months ago.
Right.
And it's not a license to eat everything that's going to hurt my body and, you know, make me have terrible cravings and trigger things in me that shouldn't be triggered. It's a meal where I eat low fat, high carb, which is the opposite of what I usually eat. And so yeah, I mean, it's been a huge evolution, and it's constantly changing the way I eat and what I eat and all of that.
Okay.
I like that you said it's, you know, even though it might be what you might call a cheat day, it doesn't mean eating the things that you still don't eat. And you know, there was a recent article that I think James from Fast Paleo posted, which I really liked, which was talking about how to find your paleo, right? What's your version? And he was talking about how you'll have your foods that you eat, and that you might have your foods that are sometimes foods that are once in a blue moon, which is less than that, and foods that are just never. And that as long as those foods stay in those ratios for you, you're still 100% on your diet. If once in a blue moon you eat that once in a blue moon food, you aren't failing yourself or your diet. That's still 100% to what your diet is and what you're okay with and what works for you.
Absolutely, it's no longer called a cheat meal in my opinion. It's just it's your 100% 80/20.
Yeah.
So speaking of slight like deviations from, you know, the norm and cheat meals and stuff, so obviously holidays are a big challenge for anybody, especially with family life. And I work in a community with women that are more religious, you know, community, and they have a lot of holidays that come up, and that's one of the biggest challenges for them to create lasting habit change is, you know, all this pressure with these conventional, traditional meals and large families around. What were some of your strategies that you undertook to make sure that you didn't feel kind of pressured, or did you bring your own food? What worked for you?
Well, yeah, I just cook everything. You know,
definitely.
I just go to my parents a day early and cook everything, and you know, they have the things that they eat that I don't eat, rolls and pies, but I just cook everything. I figure if I take on the role and I know everything that's going into it, then I can eat it. And if I didn't cook it, I probably don't eat it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a quick question that we can go around and everyone can answer. What's your favorite? I won't call it a cheat food because we decided we're not going to do that. But what's your favorite, you know, carb refeed food? We'll say that. Mine is ice cream.
Mine is my mother's fried chicken, which I'm thinking about right now.
Is it full on gluten fried chicken?
It's straight up. Yeah, it is. This I'm on my 20 right now, so we'll call it that.
All right, it's confession time.
There you go.
Well, I'll probably say two things. I would say I've got one thing that I literally would probably consider cheating. It's not even once in a blue moon. It's pretty much like a never that I'll allow myself to have like once every 7 or 8 months. And for me, it's a good plate of nachos at a bar, like, you know, corn chip nachos decked out with cheese and the veggies and the beef, and like that is probably the one thing. Like I've been pretty good like with paleo, let's say, for, you know, 2.5 years now, or my version of it. It's still no grains. That is probably the one grain-based thing I've eaten several times over the last couple of years was a good plate of nachos.
I just call that Thursday.
Yeah, not even for me. What about you?
Well, I know everybody always, you know, my clients ask me about, you know, cheat meals and stuff, and I know it's kind of a weird answer, but I never find that is an issue for me, specifically like from the grain perspective, because for me it's a health issue. Like I have a horrible sensitivity to most grains, and so they make me sick, so I don't eat them. It's a very kind of survival based thing. But I would say my favorite kind of cheat thing, which I do on a regular basis, is potatoes. And you know, when we first went paleo,
she loves potatoes.
I freaking love potatoes.
Potatoes
They're
awesome. Get her going.
I love potatoes. That's not even a cheat. That's like, not even a.
Russian made me potatoes. I don't know.
She's always trying.
You know what? Matt Lalonde did. I don't know if anyone saw his talk at AHS. His last talk. The potatoes are, you know, pretty nutrient dense. So I think.
I don't care. They make me feel good, and I like them. So, it was a whole scientific talk, and I was like, yeah, I knew that already. So, yeah, no, I enjoyed his talk. But yeah, I think that you have to find, as as John was saying, like what's right for you. And I think the rule with cheat meals is if it doesn't make you feel worse physically or mentally and psychologically after, then it's not really a cheat meal. It might differ from your regular diet a little bit. That's fine. We vary in how we're feeling and what our physical needs are. So I think that when we get to a point where you're actually in tune with your body and you're listening to that intuition, if you have a desire to have something more carbohydrate based or have something more dairy based, if that you don't have a sensitivity to that, then you might actually be needing that in your diet. And I really believe that that's kind of, once you learn to hear that inner voice again, that's when you can kind of make those decisions. So it's not really a craving, it's more of a need. So.
And I think speaking for myself and probably for most of you guys, if we do have that one meal where it's a cheat meal or whatever, I know that the next day I can get up right away and it's not even a thought. I'm right back on my plan. Whereas in the past, that would have been like, oh, the diet's over. I'm just going to eat like crap for the next month, and then I'll start again on a Monday. It's not like that. It's like, all right, this is cool. I can eat like this, and tomorrow I'm going to wake up, and I'm cool. I'm going right back to the way I used to, not even a thought.
And yeah, and that brings up an interesting point. One of my favorite, topics is habit change. And I think that we think of, habit change as being like a very short-term thing, and it's true that complex habit can be broken up into, smaller bits. But really, like as you said, achieving a long-term habit change or a complex habit can take, even a year or 6 months. So, one cheat meal is not detrimental to your long-term process. It's even just a tiny blip on the grand scheme of things. If you think that it's just a 3-week thing that you're doing, then yes, one meal, oh my God, like that's a big issue. But if it's a 6-month process, one meal, I mean, really, like if it turns into a month, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Jen, anything you want to add to that?
I completely agree with Barbara. I didn't always just have a cheat meal once a week. I still don't always have a cheat meal once a week. I forget to plan like a birthday party or, going out to eat, and I do my best, but I mean, we all know how going out to eat can be. And so, I try to keep it in perspective. I stress, to me, stressing yourself out about it so much that you're, a ball of nerves is worse than just, eating something that's probably.
Definitely.
Totally.
And in many situations, if your cheat meal is something that you can't get elsewhere, which is usually our situation, and you make it yourself, I find that, even if there is a slight emotional component, because sometimes that happens, you're not feeling good and you have that emotional reaction to the food, by the time you're done cooking it, you've kind of released a lot of that tension by that creativity that, like Erica was mentioning. It's a positive process, and you feel better about yourself. It's, self-affirming, and, then you might enjoy it, but you're not going to dig into the whole thing, and you might share with your family and your those that are close to you, and it changes into a whole different story. And by the share, I mean give it to John.
I hate sharing.
I always cook and give it to you, so that's not sharing.
Everybody's always trying to get me to share, and you know what? A lot of the time,
that's the biggest issue in our relationship.
We're gonna deal with this right now. A lot of the time, I don't have a problem sharing,
yes,
but everybody thinks I have a problem.
You have a problem sharing.
So I have a little problem, but it's like maybe they see the way I'm eating, I look like I'm hiding something or something, and then they start talking about my problem, and then I start getting.
No, John, it's supposed to be because you freak out if I offer your food to anybody else. So
well, don't offer my food away.
No. I offer some of the food that works.
And there it is, ladies and gentlemen.
That's the popcorn.
So when we first started dating, and I was a vegan, and John was bodybuilder,
everything.
whatever. John was something.
John was bodybuilder.
He was eating like huge sandwiches of Lord knows what, layered upon Lord knows what. And, I was raised in, kind of like a conventional, like traditional European family. So when you're cooking, you offer everybody else, even if you know they're not going to eat. It's just what's accepted. Otherwise, it's very, very rude. And you'd freak out every time. So now you're a little better because I make double batches, and one batch is his and the rest is for sharing. So it's all about strategizing. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Well done. That was enjoyable.
I've got a similar story, but I won't bring that to this episode. Jen, I've got a question for you as the budding therapist. I'm gonna keep going back to that fear piece of this that I've gone back to a couple of times already, and I want to know what you can say about what kind of advice you can give to people that maybe are fearful but are not yet acknowledging it, and like they haven't had that perception shift that you obviously had at several points, during this process. So maybe you could give some lookouts, I guess, or some landmarks for some people that don't yet see them there.
Well, I think, just really try to be more self-aware. Just really think about why. Why am I reacting this way to this? Why? It's difficult. It's a difficult question. You kind of have to go through and just sometimes you don't even have to think about it. Like I wasn't really consciously thinking, well, I'm really afraid to go upstairs, so I'm going to force myself. I just sort of was like, well, you got to change what you're doing. This is not working. Do something else. So, just constantly look for something more, constantly be trying to find something deeper. And if you're not conscious about it, the act of, looking and changing and, read or find people who you can look up to, you'll get there, I think. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of lessons.
So just start doing it first, and maybe the enlightenment will follow.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
I think one little thing to point in there, anytime someone wants to be successful in anything, whether it's weight loss or starting a business, is look to those who have done what you're trying to do, right? And that's why pages like Jen's and like all of ours, but Jen just more from someone who went and did it. That's what you do, right? I think it's important to see the people who have done it, people who inspire you. Even ask, most people love being asked for help, right? How many times if someone messages you, Jen, I love your page, I love this podcast you did, can you help me with this and that? And like it touches your heart, you're willing to help, right? You don't put
them on. I always answer. Always.
So, yeah, just something to add.
So Jen, you mentioned you'd had obviously like a long history with food, and when you hit that point that you had noticed you were gaining weight later on. How many times would you say that you kind of made an effort to make a change and weren't ready, and kind of like maybe went halfway and had to stop and restart? Like obviously something changed. You said you had that accountability that last time, but I truly believe that all of our tries and resets are a part of that kind of mental shift. So you're preparing in order to be ready to finally make that change. But I'm just interested in how many tries that took you.
So I was basically probably severely overweight from the time I was, I'm going to say 23 to, I'm now 37, so like 35 were my, biggest points. And I tried once. I lost about 50 pounds. I did the Dr. Phil diet. It was a long time ago. And I did okay, but I just didn't stick with it long term because I didn't set myself up to. I didn't put things in place that were going to keep me going. I didn't have the accountability. I didn't have the things that really keep you going and keep you committed. And I was probably 25. I wasn't ready.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's what you were pointing out, is the planning and the preparation stage is really, really key. And, it's interesting, like as, a fitness and movement professionals, like I always believe that, when creating a change in terms of taking somebody who, hasn't been exercising for a long time, and transitioning them into that, there's what should be termed really as a prehab period, which is helping them mentally prepare and physically prepare for the actual change to occur. And if you don't take the time, then it's something that's extremely shocking and threatening and can cause fear that, they won't be able to stick to long term. So that this kind of setting point, and the same thing with food. Planning, preparing, doing your research, maybe getting someone that will make you be accountable for that is really, really key. And it's the same thing with movement, right? Making sure you deal with your issues prior to starting. Otherwise, it just make it worse. So
let's talk a little bit about what we have going on our respective websites. Eric, why don't we start with you? Or any new videos, blog posts, and things like that?
Well, I put out a new YouTube video, a new blog post every day, Monday through Friday. So go check that out. Nothing too flashy right now, at least.
They're all good. They're all good. Your Facebook page?
It's Eric Hulse, and then
it's like health, nutrition.
Never remember it. He's never said it
okay.
once. He's never said it on this program once.
It's Eric Hulse, Holistic Health and Lifestyle Coach. Okay, it's a long ass title, but whatever.
John and Barbara, what do you got going on?
Well, I'm heading to Paleo Effects this week. Leaving tomorrow morning, coming from Ontario with 3 other people from up here. So that's kind of what's big for me and for us, and that's we'll be talking about it when we get back next week. So
yeah, when are you getting back? Because I know we got that episode coming up.
Yeah, I'll be back late Monday night, and on Tuesday we're gonna have April Lemaster on from Butterflies
Peace and
Paleo, and she'll be at Paleo Effects as well. So we're gonna be able to kind of talk Paleo Effects and fill people in on what was going on. And Barbara will be, fully covering the blog and the page while I'm gone.
Yeah, we have some interesting posts coming up, obviously, with some recipes, but specifically one post that I have in mind about kind of discussing the issue of moderation and what that actually really means in a real food perspective. I think that's a really important issue to address. And the second part of our series of Rethink Your Training, which is going to be called Get Off That BOSU. So I'm really excited for that. Yeah, you can guess how I feel about BOSUs. So I'm going to be kind of working in that direction. So John's going to be away. I'm going to be kind of blogging a bit, and then he'll be back, and looking forward to hearing all about that. So I'm sure he'll do a post on that as well.
Awesome. Jen, remind everyone where they could find you and what you have going on at your site.
So I have a website. It's mypaleodieting.com. It's horribly neglected. Sorry. But I'm always posting on my Facebook page, which is just Paleo Dieting. And so there's going to be a book in the future.
Wow. Was that the first mention of that anywhere? Did we get the exclusive one?
Publicly, yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, actually, I did.
No, just leave it at that. Let us.
Yes.
Joe, we know you've got some stuff. You had some stuff going on this week. What's going on with you?
I released my new book, which is called Planting the Seeds for Health, Wellbeing, and a Superhero Life. That went really well. Very excited about that. We got some pretty good ranking on Amazon. I think we overtook Joel. What's his name? Joel Osteen, which was pretty exciting. I don't know if anyone knows who that is, but
yes,
I was pretty psyched to leap over him. So yeah, people can find out more about that if they just go to my website, wellnesspunks.com, and you'll find some info on that there. All right, awesome. So thank you, Jen, for joining us and hanging out. And I think we definitely raised the bar for our show here by having you on. So thanks.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, big time.
Awesome.
Yeah, great work so far. Please stay in touch. Come back anytime.
If anyone wants to find us, best place is A Tribe Called Health on Facebook. If you have any questions, we will probably do an episode or two where we just answer some questions from people, or at least we'll do a segment in an episode where we'll answer some questions. So if you have questions, find us on Facebook, or you can go to our website, atribecalledhealth.com, and there's a link there where you can ask us questions. So check us out there. And thanks to everyone who watches on YouTube and downloads on iTunes. Please leave us a review and rating. Unless you hate the show, then don't bother.
And if you do, let us know what you hate.
True, yeah, but do that privately. We can't take the criticism.
Put it on Joe's page.
That's all. I'm used to it.
Stop, Joe.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone for another awesome show, and we'll see everyone soon.
Right on. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, guys.